Hello and welcome to The Last Word. I'm Gargi Rawat. Our special focus tonight, the impact of social media on mental health, especially when it comes to the mental health of the younger population. Now, why are we focusing on this? That's because one of America's most senior health officials has now called on the country to impose smoking-style warning labels on social media platforms, the type you see on a cigarette packet. He thinks that apps should come with the same warning. Writing in the New York Times, Surgeon General Vivek Murthy said that social media increased the risk that children would experience symptoms of anxiety and depression, and he wants these people who visit the platforms to be shown a message warning them that they are associated with significant mental health harms for adolescents. He says that such a label would regularly remind parents and adolescents that social media has not been proved safe. While Vivek Murthy wants the US to act on this issue, and he wants everyone to come together, including the platforms, including Congress and society, it's an issue and it's something that needs thought everywhere, in India as well. What's also startling is how little we know about the long-term impact of social media on our mental health and on people. Joining us to talk more about this, we're joined by Dr. Anjali Chhabria, psychiatrist and director, Mind Temple Institute of Behavioral Sciences. Also, Neha Hiranandani, an author of the book I Parent, which is a book that actually deals with parenting in this age of social media. Thank you so much both for joining us. And Dr. Anjali Chhabria, first to you, your comments on, what Vivek Murthy is batting for there in the US. He thinks that social media platforms and these apps should come with a warning label about the impact they're going to have on your mental health.
So, you see, I think it's a very good beginning. Because theoretically, of course, we all know that mental health is impacted because of social media. And if you see a label again and again, it will definitely create awareness for people who do not know about it. But if you look at it practically, how is the app or how is the social media who actually wants to engage the user? How are they going to portray it? Are they just going to put it on, in a small line which says that, okay, this can cause harm? Or are they going to put it like, okay, these are the terms and conditions? How many of us really read the terms and conditions before agreeing to go on a social media app? So while theoretically it may be great that you're creating awareness, practically, I do not know. It's exactly like the label, smoking is injurious to health. How many people does it dissuade from smoking the cigarette? So while it's a good beginning, we need to definitely do much more than just that.
No, definitely. And at least this has sparked this conversation and a reminder, not that we've not been having these conversations, but that we, it's a process that we need to continue to do. We're also joined by Mishi Chaudhary, technology lawyer and founder, SFLC.in, that Software Freedom Law Center. Thank you so much for joining us. Neha, I'd like you to now comment on this, considering your book, deals with these issues, especially parenting in this age of social media and so much of your lives being digital. Your, reaction to this advice or this, what he's petitioning for?
Yeah, look, I think let's take a step back and think about it. What is a warning label, right? A warning label, it's not going to make a warning label on a cigarette pack. It's not going to make a smoker quit. What it is going to do, however, is it's going to make you step back, think about it, and realize that this product that you're about to consume, and social media is a product, this product that you're about to consume should be consumed in moderation. It'll give you thought, it'll give you pause. And frankly, I don't see what the fuss is about, and I don't see why this is frankly even a contentious issue. This is something we should have done years ago. Because look, there is no precedent for the impact of the internet, right? No generation, you said right now, Gen Z visits these platforms. Actually, Gen Z doesn't visit these platforms. Gen Z lives on these platforms, That's where they're living, that's where they're loving, that's where they're learning. And no generation has ever done this before. So somehow we have found ourselves in a gigantic social global experiment. And all our kids are part of this experiment. Okay, now, if we're all part of this experiment, let's all agree we're part of this experiment. If we're part of an experiment, the first thing that we can do is a pretty basic step, is put a label on it saying, hey guys, we don't know how this is going to turn out. This is all just an experiment. consume it in moderation because we don't have the longitudinal data on it. So frankly, I think this is a step that should have been done 10 years ago when, social media really exploded in all our lives.
All right, interesting there, your take on it. And no, it's not contentious as such, but yes, it's interesting that, this would be proposed. And, Vivek Murthy also wants social media platforms to also do their bit and be more responsible. Mishi Chaudhary, your comments on this. And we do know that the American Psychological Association has said about social media, according to their studies, is not inherently beneficial or harmful, but it's, as everything, it's how you use it.
Thank you. I think what is important here to note is that whether it is anecdotal data or at least increasing research which is coming out tells us that the impact on teenagers, adolescents, or kids is much more harmful than it is on adults. Their prefrontal cortex is not developed yet. They're still going through all of it. We've already seen the impact of social media on democracy, on politics, on misinformation, disinformation. It is very hard for us adults to also keep a control on our usage and to expect that children are going to be able to handle this much more responsibly is us living in a fool's paradise. Now, General Murthy is trying to at least use whatever is the strongest possible tool available to him. It's not going to obviously work without the Congress passing some legislation, but it is at least the right start. In terms of effectiveness in the United States, when 50 years ago, the labels for tobacco consumption were started, 42.5% Americans were smoking. Today, it is around 11.5%. It does impact. It creates that kind of at least social pressure to understand what it does to all of us. Now, Jonathan Haidt's research does tell us that the inflection point, which is called the rewiring of childhood, started when 2007 smartphone comes. The moment you switch from a flip phone to a smartphone, you have the front-facing camera, you have Instagram, you are constantly now being judged on your appearance, how you show up on social media, and by the peers who are also young people. And we already know that the idea of kindness, the idea of treating other people, all of that is being developed. And none of this actually is giving us so much of benefit that it is worth the risks or the harms it is presenting. And that's why it already puts this decision on parents all the time, as if parents are supposed to take care of everything, even for very harmful things for which enough research exists. Most of the social media, the brightest minds work in these companies to make sure that the algorithm makes them much more addictive. And we can all go through that rabbit hole. I'm sure all of us have experienced time passes so fast and we don't even realize how much of that impacts us subconsciously. So I think it's a good start. And obviously, there are a lot of practicalities in terms of whether it will get passed. We are also living in an election year, at least in the US. So the administration will need to have bipartisan support here. In India, such discussions actually tend to infantilize the children a lot more. And then we mostly think about censorship kind of ways.
Right.
Here it is just a label. So I think I would personally think that, like Evan Moglen said, that Mark Zuckerberg caused the most harm to the human race by introducing all of this than any other person of his age. And we continue to see that on our kids as well as on our society. So it's a very good start.
Right. Well, Mark Zuckerberg, if it wouldn't have been him, it would have been somebody else. But very, interesting there, the way you put it. And, you just talk about all the risk and the harms with very little upside. Harpreet Suri, leading mom influencer in India, also joining us. So, Harpreet, your, comments on this and a warning label. And if the US does it and it pressurizes these, apps, and perhaps I was being naive to think that the apps or, digital platforms themselves would encourage or, do something on this front, since their business is to encourage people to spend more and more time. But even so, a warning like this would at least be a reminder to people to take a break. Your comments?
So I've so enjoyed listening to Mishi. I must say that the way she's put it, being parents, put it under the scanner, or what Mr. Mark Zuckerberg has done for us. Anyways, what I feel is I don't know how much is going to help Gargi, because we see it in cigarette packets also, and you know how the sales are going. But it's a constant reminder. Maybe when we see it every single day, we realize that ye nahi karna hai. We're not supposed to do this. But I'm not sure if this is going to help. Ultimately, it's come back to parents and guardians that who have to monitor the children. There has to be, like we have in our house, we need to have blackout zones for social media. Ultimately, it has to be the home that has to do all of this. Anybody might give any advisory, but it has to be on the parents.
Right. Okay, and Dr. Chhabria, what have you seen in terms of the impact social media has had on children, on teenagers, very impressionable minds, girls? We hear constantly that it's even worse, given that they face a lot of challenges when it comes to self, the body image, etc. So, what have you, in your experience, seen?
I think a lot depends on the environment, as we're all talking about. So if the environment is healthy, if the child is healthy and understands that I need to use this limitedly, and also I need to be exposed to people socially and not only to them on the social media, okay, I think children also understand to use it responsibly. When we see that there are children who are anyway undergoing anxiety, depression, forget children, imagine any of us, if we are having a bad day, and you see someone looking absolutely great over there and showing you pictures of their best life, somewhere even you have adults who get affected by this. So definitely we have seen a lot of teenagers getting affected by what they are being shown on social media. And also what happens is, unfortunately, they go more into it. This becomes their resort to just having fun. They do not want to go out and play games as parents may want them to do. Instead, they want to go more and more into the gadgets. And also what happens is sometimes it's actually a war trying to get the gadget away from them. We also see a lot of interaction which may be happening on social media, which may be harming the child's life. And if the child does not share it with the adults, there are kids who are bullied on social media. And that itself can have a huge impact. Suicidal attempts, talking to people saying, I want to end my life. And you're telling the world out there, but you're not telling the person who's sitting next to you. So I think there's a huge work. There lots of work needs to be done in that area. And definitely we need to protect our young minds in whatever way that we can.
All right. Harpreet Suri, your comments there, especially if you said as parents, all of us need to be more mindful, more careful, helping the children negotiate this space of social media and online platforms. So, what have you seen among your parent groups, and how much of a struggle is it to really discipline children in this day and age? And also, as has been said earlier, one has to lead by example.
So, I have a toddler and I have a teenager. Totally different age groups, totally different way of seeing social media. But as a parent, again, I have to reinforce. So I show my kids how I like to do it is I keep telling them, I show them videos, I show them content. I keep forwarding them the content which I feel they must see. And I try and I hope that they only Google that kind of content, because I keep reminding them that there's so much good we can get out of it. Thankfully, my son, being a teenager, he still hasn't caught on the fever. He's not excited about Instagram, though that's my job, but he shies away from it. I have always shared with him what are the downsides of it. I'm telling my daughter also now, training her young, so that when she grows up to see what happens on the gram and this all fake life, she's not affected. See, we can only try as parents. I've also tried to scrutinize the time that they have. It's not more than an hour at night, because they will end up, Gargi. You cannot say no to this, because if everybody else, it's a peer group. You can't. They all are watching. My son does all his work on internet. How much can I stop him? I can only guide him, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm reinforcing. Maybe some guideline like this also comes in. The label is right there. Maybe it registers to them early on, and they know that this is not great. This is just to learn, and that's it, and leave it at that.
It doesn't come home. It doesn't affect lives. I was seeing what Dr. Chabria is also saying. Yes, it's crazy how these teenagers, these girls are getting affected. I see it in my group. There's a lot of competition. Girls get this, it's peer group competition, and we have to keep talking to our children about it. There's no other way, how I see it.
No, absolutely. And I think I'm very grateful. I didn't grow up at a time of social media, at least my school years weren't. But so Neha, come in here and, again, it comes back to the parents and how we're, helping the children. But bullying is something that is a real fear that we've seen takes place a lot online. Also, we've talked a lot about the negative impact, but what about the positives? I think we all went through the pandemic, and at that time, a lot of youngsters, found it very positive and very helpful to be in touch with their friends and all on social media or, various, like we're right now on Zoom, etc. So all that is also there. That is a positive in the sense of connecting people.
Look, 100%, right? I don't think any of us here can afford to be technophobes. Certainly, the generations below us cannot afford, after us cannot afford to be technophobes, right? And it's not about throwing your screen out of the window. There's too much good. Whether it's actually having a career. Oh yeah, of course. Learning, having a new career. There's so much connectivity. People find communities online, and that's not a small thing. So absolutely, this is a double-edged sword, and we'll have to treat it as such. But and realize that there's a lot of good. We just have to moderate it. But I wanted to come back to a point that was, I think, coming up earlier in the conversation. The idea of parents having to do it all, and frankly, I disagree with that. And I think that's far too much pressure on a parent today. I think what I love about the Surgeon General putting this idea of putting the label out is that it actually widens the responsibility, right? And the idea is that the village comes together, whether it's a lawmaker, a policymaker, a parent, a school, a health institution, we come together because frankly, none of us can solve it alone. We just can't. And here's the other thing, you mentioned, Gargi, that the Surgeon General is also asking these companies to be part of it and the companies to be coming in this sort of circle of responsibility. And I think that is fantastic because look at who these companies are. These companies are frankly the most powerful companies in the history of the world, right? Meta is one of the most profitable companies the world has ever seen. So widening that ambit and putting the responsibility on these companies to say, hey, stop just making money off of our data. Learn how to protect it. I think that's a fantastic thing because not only we talk often about how this is a mental health issue. Of course it is. It 100% is. But it's also a data privacy issue. Our kids are growing up online. Every time you go online, you leak data. This data is being collected. It is being monetized. And it's going to live forever. So the idea that these companies then actually show some responsibility in how they're collecting and protecting this data, I think it's massively important. And frankly, I am all for anything that takes singular pressure off a parent and says, hey, we've got to solve this together.
All right, Mishi Chaudhary, your comments on that. And can we expect this? Can we expect that maybe all of us build enough pressure on these companies that they also take responsibility for the youth and these concerns raised regarding mental health and anxiety that we're seeing more and more?
See, the great thing about companies is to keep saying this is a parental problem or it's somebody else's problem. Don't tell us because, and we can self-regulate. They've had 20 years. We have seen how much self-regulation has come in, which is amounting to zero. The algorithms are built to get more engagement. That's how they collect more data. That's how they can make advertising dollars. There's no other business model other than surveillance capitalism. You surveil people, you collect data, then you sell it to advertisers. That's how you become rich. Now, the problem when happens is that there are seat belts. We don't allow children to watch movies under PG-13. Those regulations have come from the society. Young people are facing online harassment, abuse, exploitation. There is exposure to extreme violence. There is a lot of sexual content. And too often, the algorithms feed is feeding into that. And there is just no control. And parents also are forced to tackle with the pressure of the fact that everybody is doing it. What do I do? We've seen that people are developing this attention deficit, and that's happening to adults also. We can't keep the focus. That's why the schools have to come together, and companies only will change their behavior when there is external pressure of law as well as the regulation. The same thing was talked about data collection for a long time. Companies always said, we are taking care of your data, everything is fine. We have seen the number of data breaches. We have continued to see how data is exploited. Only when European Union said, no, you'll have to listen to us. This is our people, and our job is to protect our people, that they got disciplined, and that traveled to the rest of the world. That's why India came with the Data Protection Act. That's why US is working on it. So from that point of view, I think the point about that there is responsibility on others as well is so important that we just can't leave it only to parents to take care of all of it. Parents obviously will lead by example. If the parent themselves is always in phone or in devices, then it is going to set an example. I will draw one distinction. Internet is not social media.
Sure.
Google is not social media. You can get all your information from Wikipedia. You should be able to research. You should be able to consume content which is meant for you at that level, for your educational purposes, for even entertainment. I am obviously a tech lawyer. My entire career is made on technology. I think what is important to understand, being on social media is very different from being online and on internet. Instagram is not internet and Facebook is not internet. Something which is curating the content and sending it to you for a very different purpose will have very different impact on some other purpose which various other websites serve. So the rest of the society, whether it is schools who are ensuring that classroom learning and social time are phone-free experiences, will have to happen there. Parents will also create all of it. But that will not replace legislation. And this is only a warning label. We've seen that it works for tobacco. We saw what seatbelts do for accidents. So some of these regulations will have to come. There is constant talk about there is no correlation and causation issue. We are correlating things, it's not causing. But we have not come up with what the alternative theory is. And in the absence of an actual good explanation, we know this is causing it. You and I know when we go online and somebody harasses us on Twitter or somewhere else for saying something politically they don't agree with us, how it makes us feel. You're a journalist, you face it every day, no matter which political party it is. And imagine a child who's growing, who's not yet developed, who doesn't have the same emotions. How do they think about their bodies? It's a little bit of an appearance. It's also about how one person talks. It could be anything. And there are a lot of people who are not going to be fair players here. They are looking to harass young children. So I personally think it's just the start of a label. We have to go much further up there. And internet is a great thing to have happened. It's the problem is with social media and data collection and being the product ourselves. Who's being exploited?
All right. Well, I'd like to take final comments from everyone. And Dr. Anjali Chhabria, first to you. Your final words on this. And what's scary is we don't even know too much about what the really long-term impacts of this is going to be. It's just been about 2 decades.
I think it's a good beginning. We all need to work together, and we need to work consistently, carefully, and usefully. We need to make this work.
All right, Neha?
Back to Mishi's point about correlation not being causation, I agree. It's not. And, we're not trying to be mathematicians here, but something happened, right? Something happened around 2011 when the like button was released. Something happened when the retweet button was released. Something happened when Instagram was released to the world and, mocked up these massive downloads. As social media and the use of social media went up, mental health of adolescents worldwide went down, and that's something, the correlation may not be causation, but that's something we need to acknowledge. And I think absolutely a warning label, not a big deal. We should have done this 10 years ago. Let's talk about what we're going to do next.
All right. And finally, Harpreet Suri, your comments, to close this entire discussion that we're having. It's a start. These are discussions that we need to have. There needs to be more awareness. Yes, I think the point that Mishi made about social media separate from the internet is also there. Yes, students are studying now more and more online, but they needn't, as all of us invariably do when we're online, go into the social media just to take a look at what's happening. And it's, a few hours have gone by or half an hour has gone by. But yes, Harpreet.
I feel lead by example and constant reminder to your children, telling them the perils, what's right, what's wrong. I think that is going to help how I see it, because everybody can say anything to their children, school and any authority, but I need to tell my children because they listen to me. I need to be on their head, keep reminding them what's right, what's wrong, and I hope that they have a safe, happy childhood and not something of a show off this world is showcasing today.
All right. And, final comment, Mishi, I know you've said a lot, but just, what would you like to leave us with?
Well, I will say that the test of a society is how do we protect those who are vulnerable, who are weak, who are growing, who are also our future. And these children are our future. I'm very glad that parents obviously take responsibility for the future, but I think that all of us are dependent on young people for where we will go. So it is incumbent upon us that the laws actually protect everybody. We have the right tools. We cannot leave our future to companies whose sole interest in this. I would also say, please, I think it's very well known that Mark Zuckerberg's own children or Tim Cook's nieces and nephews, they're not allowed to use social media the way we are allowed with all of it. There must be a reason about it.
When Steve Jobs released the iPad, he said, I won't let my own children use it.
Yes, that's a very famous...
that's the thing. So I think
famously known, yes.
So I think that's
Gargi, the most used platform amongst Gen Z right now is Snapchat, right? But the CEO of Snapchat doesn't allow his own kids.
Well, that's an interesting thought to leave it at. I'm completely out of time. Thank you so much. But Mishi, yes, that's an important point you made. And thank you all. And these are conversations we need to be having, especially now that it's been raised as it has in the US with, wanting these warning labels like we see on cigarette packs, warning you about the mental health impact that social media platforms have. It's a very interesting idea and one that hopefully will become a reality. That's all from me. Thanks for watching. Good night.